Can I, as a graphic designer, put together a trendy recipe cookbook from layout to content to images in just about 4 to 6 hours? Well, let's see. I'm going to mix things up, combining the power of generative AI and traditional graphic design tools. So I'm talking Midjourney and ChatGPT, along with Photoshop and InDesign. Ready for the game plan? Let's dive in. So here's what we need. We're going to need 20 dessert recipe ideas. I'm going to generate a permutation prompt in Midjourney, tweak the outputs using Photoshop Beta, set up a spreadsheet for later integration in InDesign, prepare all the recipes using ChatGPT, design the layout in InDesign, employing data merge for efficient automation, and lastly, review the final output and export the file. That's our roadmap for this creative challenge. Let's get cooking. Let's start with Midjourney. So a permutation prompt is basically just like a batch processing of a prompt. So by writing your list of options, separated with commas within a curly braces, you can whip up multiple versions of a prompt with different combos of those options. Now here's the prompt I've already fine-tuned to align with my vision and the style for the cookbook, but let's see it in action. I ran them in batches of 5, but I believe you could potentially go up to 10. That's just a personal preference. I wanted to review the results and ensure that everything was running smoothly, and just avoid running unnecessarily fast hours here. After I'm done generating all my images, I'm heading over to the Midjourney website. Well, pick out my preferred outputs to then import them into Photoshop Beta. Once in Photoshop Beta, I'm gonna use a generative fill to clear away any odd artifacts that might have cropped up in Midjourney and to just tweak anything that isn't quite to my taste. Next up, I'll create an action on one of the images, which I'll then apply to all 20 of the images I've generated. This action will include a hint of sharpening, warm color filter, some contrast adjustments, and the addition of just like some noise. When it's time to batch process all the images, I simply go to File, then Automate, and finally Batch. There I'll select my source folder, and voila! All the edits we saved in our action will now be applied across all the images, and we're done. For the Google spreadsheet, I've already set everything up with a clear idea of what I want to include, plus the understanding of how the CSV needs to be structured for the data merge later. We're going to see that a bit later, but it will all make sense. I've planned for the pages to feature a pre-title, the main title, just a brief introductory copy, and of course everything you need for a recipe. So the ingredients, a step-by-step instruction, and I also made sure to include the nutrition facts for each recipe. In ChatGPT-4, I set up my prompt in 2 stages. So I initially tried to get everything done in one step, but that didn't quite work out as I planned. So here's what I did. I asked for one recipe, incorporating all the necessary information outlined in my spreadsheet. And after generating the recipe, I asked ChatGPT to display it in an output in the form of the spreadsheet table. So that just allows me to easily copy-paste the information into my CSV file. Then, following the same pattern, I had the remaining recipes generated in sets of 5 again. This here was mainly to avoid overwhelming the system. Honestly, there could be a way simpler way to do this, but even so, it only took me like 20 minutes to get the full set of 20 recipes, which, considering this is just like for a challenge, I'd say this is a win. Now that the images are also ready to go, we can add the file paths into the CSV Honestly, I must admit I didn't get this right the first time around, so just take the correct one right away. Now we want to export to CSV file and on to the next step. All right, now we are in InDesign. I've already set up the cookbook design to save some time on here. It took me approximately an hour. So yeah, we have a cover, a table of contents, the recipe layout, a disclaimer page, and just like the end page. For the page numbers, I simply head over to the masters, cut and paste the design, and adjust the master to the correspondent correct pages later on. Now the setup of the CSV might make a lot more sense when you see it visually. Again, we have the pre-title, title, the copy, and all the necessary information for each recipe. Let's now integrate a file for data merge. When you upload, a small window will appear, and my task here is to match the design with the data. Once this is done, I can click on preview to check if everything fits perfectly or if there's some changes that needs to be made before we actually export the file. For the export process, my strategy is to duplicate a file, but only the pages that actually contain data merge, and to just reinsert here it's just 3 pages later back in. I found this to be the quickest way, but hey, there could be an even faster way I'm just not really aware of. For the final touches, I wanted to adjust all the headlines to span across 2 rows rather than just one. That's just like a visual preference I had for this cookbook. And next I went in to tweak the image sizes. It's not an essential step, but I always like to double check to ensure everything looks just like it's best. Upon reviewing, I also noticed a few odd glyphs that had snuck into the file. So yeah, I just went quickly in there, corrected those, and that's essentially it. That's the whole process. Yeah, to wrap things up, I exported the file as an interactive PDF, which can include like clickable links and a table of contents. I actually forgot to film that part, but I did it. So yeah, from start to finish, this entire project took me like 4 to 6 hours to complete, which is kind of insane. But yeah, just like as a disclaimer, but more of a challenge to explore how could I utilize these tools in scenarios where, for example, a client might be delayed in delivering the copy or the unsplash images we all already know by heart. So yeah, just as a disclaimer for that. I'll be putting the PDF of the cookbook on my website for just as a free download. So yeah, feel free to browse through it. Please bear in mind that I haven't tested out any of these recipes. This is just like a fun challenge for me as a graphic designer. So yeah, don't hold it against me if they don't quite turn out as expected. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Excited to see what other people would do with all those tools we have available now at our hands. And yeah, enjoy.